Or
It's recording now.
oh,
Video.
okay. All right. I guess I'll start now. Hello, my name is Princess Small. I was a jet in Ehime from 2005 to 2007. I am going to talk about what it's like to be an ALT for elementary school and junior high school or middle school in Japan on the JET program. All right. So just some basic things to remember is the school year is 3 sections. So you have, it's divided into 3, what do you call them? Semesters. There you go. So it starts in April to July, August to December, and then January to March. So in the classroom, you'll be with a Japanese teacher of English, a JTE, for the middle school portion. Actually, I'm just gonna divide it into elementary, shogako, and middle school, chugako. So first I'll talk about elementary, because most of you will have either just elementary or middle school and elementary. So it'll probably apply to pretty much everybody. So shogako is grades 1 through 6. They have a very loose curriculum. In fact, they don't really have much of a curriculum when it comes to English. So when you go there, it will pretty much be all on you to decide what you're going to teach, what they're going to learn. Basically, the homeroom teacher will have taught a couple of English words, maybe some letters, but they teach it using katakana. So that's one of the 3 Japanese writing systems. So it's not going to be really communicative. So your role going in there is to really help the students use whatever they've already learned and then to teach them some new things. And so mainly you're going to go with, maybe days of the week, colors, couple animals. You can start them writing English letters, but I mean, it's really totally up to you. So at the end, I'll give you some advice or give you recommendations for websites that you can use. But just the main thing to remember is when you go in there, it's really going to be up to you what you want to do. So a lot of times with the JET program orientations, they do talk about how you're team teaching a lot. But when I went into my elementary school classrooms, and many other JETs experience this as well, the homeroom teacher might leave or just sit at their desk and watch along with the kids. So don't be alarmed, but it's just that a lot of times they are not well versed in English, and so they don't want to be embarrassed or they don't want to intrude on your lesson, and so they really do expect you to do most of the work there. But it doesn't always have to be that way. If you can incorporate the homeroom teacher into the lesson, that's nice. But you just have to figure out what they're looking for. Let's see. Really, when it comes to elementary, the goal is to get the students acclimated to hearing English, acclimated to being around someone of a different culture, kind of instilling, I guess, a positive attitude towards English, foreign cultures, people from a different background. Again, the internationalization, it's mainly an emotional thing that they're looking for. So they're not really looking for grammar. Don't even worry about that. They're not looking for grammar, a whole bunch of vocabulary. Just stick with the basics and kind of go with it from there. Let's see. So a couple of websites that you might want to look at for shogako, for elementary school, would be Genki English. That's the perennial favorite. So it was actually started by an ALT who arrived in Japan and didn't know what he was doing. And so he's developed curriculum. There's plenty of games, videos, all sorts of resources for mainly elementary school students. Let's see. So for chugako, or middle school, that's when they actually start with the national curriculum of English. And so here they're going to be studying grammar and studying vocabulary. Grammar, vocabulary, grammar, vocabulary, grammar, vocabulary. Right. So that is when you might be asked to do some slightly different things, and you won't have as much autonomy in the classroom. So again, with shogako, even the students, they don't have to wear uniforms, and they just go in, they have a good time, and haha, English is fun. But when you get to middle school, it's much more rote memorization, teaching of grammar. So usually the lesson structure is, well, actually first, all right, when you go to your chugako, you're going to meet your JTE, and hopefully every day, again, every situation is different, or every situation is what you make it, whatever the saying is now. But hopefully your JTE will talk to you and say, hey, this is what we're going to do today, page 36, talking about do you like, or something like that. So, hopefully they'll want to talk to you before the class starts. Some people, or sometimes even me, like, it's just surprise, hey, come to the class. But generally, you'll have a little talk with your JTE before class starts. You go to the classroom. Usually to start the lesson, there's a little conversation between you and the JTE, demonstrating whatever grammar point it is. Hello, how are you? Do you like natto? No, I don't like natto. That kind of thing. So you have that. And then usually they open their books, they have some kind of recitation, or they read a passage, something like that. Vocabulary. A lot of times the JTE might translate the dialogue, just in case. With that, there's no problem. It's really a matter of getting them acclimated to, again, hearing English, understanding the grammar, and getting the vocabulary. One thing that I would recommend is doing a little bit of research on the Japanese school system. So, for example, in America, you might get held back if you don't pass a certain grade. In Japan, they just move you forward. So a lot of times students aren't, raising their hands too often, asking for clarification, asking, I don't understand this, they're kind of reluctant to, stick out too much. Why do you want to learn so much? Why are you asking questions? So, so again, the JTE will likely, hopefully, make sure that they understand what's going on in the dialogue, and they'll do some translations. Then after that, you usually have an activity that you will be involved in. Sometimes my JTE would ask me to explain the activity slowly in simple English. Or other times she would just say it in Japanese and then say, yes, princess, we're about to do this. So again, it just depends on how your JTE likes to do that. But usually it's a communicative activity. And again, I can't even say usually. Sometimes, again, there's the issue where ALTs are used as, they call them, the human tape recorder. But again, I was often asked to participate in whatever the communicative activity was. So that was pretty positive. Let's see. So with lesson planning, again, some ALTs are asked to do some amount of lesson planning. But mainly, I would recommend just having some kind of lesson plan ready, just in case, especially for, again, elementary school, because there is no national curriculum. It's just, help us speak a little bit of English and have a good time. So with elementary, definitely you want to do some preliminary lesson planning. Games, that's what I really mean, games. Keep it simple, because these activities, like if you wanted to color the flag of your country, that can last 20 minutes. You don't have to do anything, extensive, but just have like some printouts, have some relia, like, you can do little, vocabulary or letter cards, anything. So just anything you can grab, and don't ask me why. I just randomly have this stack of cards with me.
Is that for junior high school?
Well, no, that would be elementary. Yeah, elementary. By junior high, well, that's the thing. With elementary, their goal isn't exactly to prepare you for junior high, which is kind of weird. It's like, don't you think they should learn how to, write A and B? But I mean, they kind of do. But that's not even like their stated goal when you look at what the goal of the English or the ELTs are. So, but I would use this for shogaku. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, and actually with shogaku, sometimes I would get a fax from my shogaku asking me to teach something once in a while. They would be like, oh, Princess, can you talk about animals? Because we're, talking about animals in our Japanese courses. So yeah, once in a while that would happen, and then you can go with that. But usually it was just, whatever you wanted. Oh,
Really? Whatever you wanted? Like just any activity?
Well, I mean, it's, of course, depending on your time and what resources you have. But I mean, again, keeping it simple, keeping it age appropriate. Yeah. So.
Okay, so I've heard that I guess the Ministry of Education is trying to make a bigger push to bring English to Japanese classrooms. When you were teaching, did you see any of that?
Like communicating and not just grammar and vocab.
Well, I'm thinking like, were there any like more structure to, the English classes? Well, classes, right? Besides, having the ALT come in and do something like a fun activity
Right.
or
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. And actually, that was kind of my next point, is that everyone's teaching capacity is different too. So I was in a middle school where I would see the one class once a month. Like I would see one class, I would have this class once a month. And I actually almost never saw the ninth graders. I would only work with seventh and eighth graders. But again, it was only at the whim of my JTE. So I'm quite certain that, those classes I'm not attending, they are doing, very serious drilling and grammar and vocabulary lessons. So there's a lot that's going to be happening without your involvement. And, sometimes that bothers people, but again, you can't, you could try, but you can't just, say, hey, I'm just going to go to this class and that's how it's going to be. And I got my own agenda, because the teachers, they definitely have their requirements. You don't want to be the teacher that, maybe focuses more on communication and then your students fail the test, and, it's going to be on you as the Japanese teacher of English. So there's only so much that we as ALTs can do, but there's a lot going on under the surface that we don't get to see or participate in. So, yeah.
Well,
but they definitely have a national curriculum that they have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when the teachers did ask for your input, and let's say you were doing a short activity or maybe doing a whole lesson, like how long were I guess, each of these lessons per se?
Oh, yes. So a lesson is 50 minutes, and at least in middle school. I think it's probably about the same in elementary as well. I mean, attention span alone, um, you can't really engage in any long, drawn-out lessons. But yeah, lessons are typically 50 minutes long. And I've even had teachers have a student come to fetch me in the middle of the lesson. So it's more like, hey, let's hear the native speaker say these words, kind of thing, kind of an afterthought.
Yeah, that's
So,
happened to me too.
yeah, exactly. They remember that they have an ALT sitting in the teacher's room. It's like, yes, I'm here. So, but yeah, so I mean, it's just there's no telling what you're gonna get. I guess one thing, if you can get in touch with the ALTs who've been to that school, they can always give you insights. But even then, it's really dependent upon how you approach the situation, how you approach your JTEs, and yeah. And about JTEs and their mistakes. So obviously you do not want to upset or embarrass your JTE in front of the students. I mean, occasionally they might say something or write something incorrectly, but just casually, in America we tend to do this, or that might be the British way. But in America, so always blame it on, the different dialects or different countries. Blame it on the British or the Australians and say, oh, I think maybe we write it in this way. So so that's a good way to correct. And I mean, you'll run into that all the time.
Yeah, because Americans are better.
Exactly. Yes. But yeah, so it's good. They'll appreciate it. Let's see.
So what tips do you have for classroom management?
Ah, yes, favorite topic. If you discover someone is being disruptive during the class, one way to deal with it is to maybe deflect it a little bit. And this is when you start to really start to understand the Japanese psyche, and you really need to understand the group dynamics. But for example, if someone's being rude or they say something rude, it would be better to kind of turn it around or acknowledge it and, laugh about it. Sometimes it depends. But if someone says, oh, wow, you're getting fat, you can say, yes, I'm practicing to become a sumo wrestler. Ha 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 ha. So, but then there's other times when students are really just acting up. And again, I think this would be a time to remember that these students have their own lives going on. They have issues at home, just like, remember when you were a middle school student and the hormones are raging and all sorts of things could be happening. So I think the best idea is to try to get to know your students as much as possible, especially the ones that are trying to act up in class, because sometimes they just want some attention, or something is going on at home, but they tend to see you more as a human being when you start making efforts to get to know them as human beings too. So rarely will you have, I'm saying this, but rarely will you have a really, severe case of someone, acting up. I've heard of people throwing furniture, but it's a very rare thing. But mostly to address those situations, I would recommend just getting to know the students, going to the clubs, being someone who's not so, I guess the idea would be to lower your exoticness, right? So become a face that they're used to and that they welcome and that they enjoy being around. So smiling a lot. Just try to really counteract those negative feelings by just hey, I got this. I'm good. But yeah, and your JTE should really handle most severe disciplinary problems. Like that's not even your role, not really. Elementary, again, the teacher might leave the room, so then you might need to figure out what your strategy is going to be there. But yeah, so again, just try to get to know your students, see them as human beings, and then they'll probably return the favor.
How hard would it be to do that if your Japanese isn't very good?
Yeah, that's true. Again, like with the after school programs, the after school clubs and all that, a lot of times it's like basketball or ping pong or, something physical, something that doesn't necessarily require words. Just getting involved and showing up, students really appreciate that. Teachers really appreciate that. So, and they'll teach you some Japanese. Like you teach them some English, they teach you some Japanese, and it's really just an exchange. I mean, your job is not always, English. It's also just being that face of someone who is from a totally different country, but they're interested in, our lives over here in Japan. So, just think about ways that you can transcend language. And I think that really happens with the after school programs and projects, sports day, culture day, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, just let them tell you what they want to tell you and listen.
Yeah, that's pretty useful. Thanks.
Yeah, it's all about communication and relationship.
Yeah, I feel that like getting, like that, I guess, an interaction with the students is especially important in elementary and junior high school, because I find in high school that a lot of kids are like, yeah, I'm cool, because they're too cool.
Exactly. They are way too cool for you. All right, we're too cool for you, English teachers.
Yeah, we English teachers are just lame.
I know, it's totally true, but and they try to pull that in middle school, but I'm like, whatever, you're in middle school. But yeah, so let's see. I guess some other things. Actually, school lunch. I don't know. People be knocking the kyushoku, but I love. Did you like kyushoku? I don't know. I liked it.
High school didn't have kyushoku.
Oh, right.
I totally would have done kyushoku because I hate cooking. I don't mind eating seaweed, and it's cheap.
I know, right? So anyway, so if you're with the elementary school and middle school, you get to experience kyushoku. And so you can experience all the many cuisines of Japan at no cost to you. So anyway, that's fun. And actually, in one school, I had to ask to eat it with the students. So some schools, they automatically have the, ALT eat with the students, but I had to ask to eat with the students. You don't have to, but, however they like it. Let's see. Also, two tips. Don't take things too personally. For example, if people forget to tell you that school is canceled tomorrow and you show up and it's closed and it's kind of awkward. But yeah, it's kind of, again, some schools, they really embrace the ALT and, you're all up in everything and you know what's going on. And then other schools are like, oh yeah, hey, how you doing? So don't take it too personally and just, let it go and just try to focus, see the bright side. You got a day off. And also motivation. So, different classes, different ages, they have different motivation, needs, requirements. So, a lot of times people want to say, oh, you're going to use English to travel. But, a lot of people just aren't going to travel. These students, they might not go anywhere.
That's very true.
Yeah, exactly. It totally is. Like they might say, hey, I want to work at the local conveni, and that's fine. That's great. But, I would couch the learning of English as more of a means of, you know, getting to learn more about the world or commerce, or knowing what's written on your shirt because, you know, you bought this cool shirt and now you don't know what it means because you don't speak English well. So I try to use different kind of motivations to get them to want to learn English.
That's a really good idea.
Yep. So I think we're almost out of time.
Yes, we are.
Right.
Yeah, that was really good. I definitely picked up a couple of things from you.
All right.
I
Awesome.
mean, I'm probably never gonna teach in Japan again, but I know these tips now.
Yep, that's good. Awesome. Well, cool. Thanks. See you later. Bye.
Thank you, Princess. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Have a
Good
nice
luck.
night. Yeah, maybe I'll see you at the pre-departure.
Exactly. Yeah, that'll be fun. Okay, all right. I'm gonna go eat something.